IELTS Writing Task 2, Formal Academic Writing.
You are now listening to the IELTS podcast. Learn from tutors and ex-examiners who are masters of IELTS preparation. Your host, Ben Worthington.
We're going to look at the basics, the principles, the foundation. And just by listening to this blog, just by listening to this podcast even, you're going to get a much better understanding and a deeper grounding in what the examiners want, which is English for academic purposes. Now, I found a really good resource online, and it's called basically the principles of writing well. However, it's more orientated towards general writing. What I'm going to do is go through it because there's lots of valuable principles and lots of value here. I'm going to go through it and apply it to a more IELTS or a more academic orientation so that we can extract immense value and improve our writing. And this goes much further than the quick tips. The quick tips are useful and stuff, but this will give you a good foundation and a good solid base which will improve. And from personal experience, I can say, not only, especially if you are thinking and dreaming in English, but it will definitely improve your clarity of mind. Like if you're writing mumble jumbo and it's all over the place and your ideas are disorganized and your sentences are disorganized, that's a good reflection of what's happening in your mind. So if you can write with much more clarity and much more definition and purpose, then this is going to be reflected in your own thought patterns as well. So let's get started. So here's one point. Okay, it's got to be purposeful. Okay, so when you're reviewing your essay, have a look. Is every sentence here necessary? Are some of them, can I say the same with less words? This is something that I continuously tell my students, especially when they send me a 300-word essay. I'm like, okay, we're already over the word count, so we need to go ruthlessly through and eliminate those ones that are not going to add to basically to task response. In this case, you can just compare it to the actual question. Say, okay, I'm over the word limit. I've got to go through, check that every sentence is bringing in points regarding task response, and that means, is it relevant to the question? Second point I want to make is that it's clear. And to make it clear, we use precise, specific, and concrete language. Okay? And for example, in the post that I'm referring to, it gives two examples. It rained every day for a week. Okay? Compare that with a period of unfavorable weather set in. Can you see how one distills with absolute clarity what was happening, but the other one is very vague? So this is useful for when we're arguing, when we're demonstrating our point. We need to be communicating very clearly. Now, there is a kind of limitation here. Simple writing is easier to understand, and clear writing is simple. However, in the IELTS, there's also this component called grammatical range and accuracy. So we cannot use entirely simple writing. We do have to mix it up with a range. And this is where the sentence guide comes in useful, because it gives you the sentence structures and it gives you that variety, but it's still quite simple to understand, and it helps you construct a very solid argument. So, from the post I'm following. It's got a quote from it's got a quote from a book, and the quote is very useful actually. It says, "Simple writing is persuasive. A good argument in 5 sentences will sway more people than a brilliant argument in 100 sentences." Now, this is exactly what I aimed to develop with the sentence guide. I wanted to go for a clear, simple argument that's easy to understand. And this way, we're going to nail task response. So that point is very valid. Let's go on. The post also says use straightforward language. Don't use the long word when a short word will do. If we're maybe a journalist or we're writing for other purposes, maybe in the company, totally agree. However, this is writing for IELTS. And here, a long word will pick up points because we're scoring for lexical resource. Okay? So normally, I would totally agree with this. Use straightforward language and use a short word when a long one, if we've got the option. However, in IELTS, we've got to show the examiner our vocabulary and lexical resource. I said there's 2 reasons. One, we've got to show a range of vocabulary. Lexical resource, we've got to show we've got quite an in-depth resource. And secondly, we're going to be avoiding repetition. So in this case, unfortunately, that point wouldn't do, but don't forget it entirely. There is some value there, especially if you're writing company emails or maybe you're writing a job application. There, the interviewer will not really care about your lexical resource, but they will care if you're not able to communicate your point clearly. The next point, from a book by William Zinsser on writing well. I think I've read this book actually a few years ago. And it says, strip every sentence to its cleanest components. Every word that serves no function, every long word that could be a short word, every adverb that carries the same meaning that's already in the verb, every passive construction that leaves the reader unsure of who is doing what. These are the 10,001 adulterants that weaken the strength of a sentence. Totally agree here. However, like I said before, we're writing for IELTS. So, in this case, for example, the adverbs are useful for academic task 1. The passive constructions are useful because we're going to show the examiner we know more than one construction. So that's not entirely the case. However, if you're over the word count, then that paragraph I just mentioned to you is very valuable. And you can go through, if you're over the word count, you can go through eliminating sentences or ideas that are not related to task response. And you can also go through shortening your sentences, and as I just mentioned, to the cleanest components. And and this is a really good skill to get. You're going to improve your clarity of focus, and it's just going to make your writing better and your thinking better, especially when you're thinking in English. Now, here is a very valuable tip. Especially, and it's one that you definitely need to incorporate into your writing, and hopefully you're doing it naturally already. But the argument from this book, part of the arguments, it's Scott Adams, The Day You Become a Better Writer. And the argument is, and I've said it a million times before, especially when I'm correcting the essays, is subject, verb, object. This makes it clear who did what and is easy to understand. I'll give you a very good example taken from the book. Okay, so the book says, the boy hit the ball. Readers comprehend this much faster than the ball was hit by the boy. Okay, but both sentences mean the same, but it's easier to imagine the object, the boy, before the action. Okay, I'll just give you the two variations. The boy hit the ball, crystal clear, we know what was going on. And then we have the ball was hit by the boy. Can you see there's some strain there? I have to maintain my attention until the very last word, then I know what's happening. Everything else makes sense. And this is basically the difference between the active and the passive. However, it's good practice to use both of them, and definitely use subject, verb, object, or the active tense more than the passive, but definitely do incorporate the passive, because like I said before, it's grammatical range and structure. Grammatical range and accuracy, you need to pick up points for showing your ability in English, and you're not going to do that by just showing one simple sentence structure. You're going to do it by showing different structures, but we need to find a balance between communicating clearly and picking up points for the variety. Okay, very valuable point there. Now the next point in the post talks about being genuine. I'm not entirely sure this is applicable for the IELTS, so we can just skip over this. It's talking about writing in your own voice, writing so it sounds natural, and showing your enthusiasm, so it's not really the case. I mean, and plus we have to remember that we're not going to be showing our enthusiasm in a formal academic English essay. So that pretty much sums that argument. Now, the next point just develops that a little bit more. It says, don't worry about whether your reader will get it or not. This is not the case for the exam. This is why in the sentence guide I strongly propose and give you a system for developing simple arguments that can be very clearly executed and presented in a way that you'll pick up maximum points for task response. So this point isn't entirely applicable to the IELTS process, or to the IELTS writing. The next points, next chapter is called the mechanics of writing, and one of the processes, one of the points is called unity, and this would be very applicable because we also one of the components which you're probably well aware of in the exam is cohesion and coherence. So unity is a very good way of incorporating these concepts, and it gives some very valuable examples of unity. So we can have unity of the pronoun, first person and third person, as an observer, as an academic, as a neutral person. Okay, no, neutral doesn't exist, but neutral argument or a neutral standpoint, neutral viewpoint. And this is very important, because if you're using some of your sentences with, for example, my friend recently decided to start studying in Dakota University. And then we switched to most of the students in Dakota, blah, blah, blah. Gets a little bit tricky. So generally, I've said this a million times before, avoid using the personal pronouns and keep it a little bit more general. And this way, we're not going to be confusing people, and we can make bigger generalizations. Next point, unity of tense. This is probably useful for academic task 1, when we're describing the bar charts and stuff, especially in the same sentence, because if we're using different tenses in the same sentences, can get confusing. Unity of mood. This is really important. The mood or our voice should be formal from beginning to end. And we're not going to incorporate humor. We're not going to incorporate slang. And we're not going to incorporate contractions. The mood or the style is formal academic English. And it has to be like that from the first word right to the end. Okay? Another point, no humor, no bullet points, no direct questions, just beginning to end, formal academic English. Okay, unity of attitude as well. I guess this would relate to your argument. Are you totally in favor, or have you said from the beginning you're going to look at both points? What position do you have? And are you going with the same argument from beginning to end in the paragraph? Or are you going to switch around and confuse the reader? Okay? And there's a whole technique, there's a whole module about that in the sentence guide because it's quite common and it's super easy to solve. And then the next one, it's unity of purpose, which is similar to what I was talking about before. You know, you like your arguments. Are you going to carry on arguing it? Are you going to put another sentence at the end of your paragraph, just mentioning another point, and then disappear and not finishing your argument? Okay? Hopefully not. You're just going to make it a clear, solid, coherent paragraph with none of those random sentences right at the end. Now then, iteration. This, I guess, in the post it's talking about the drafts and about editing and tinkering. And this is one of the advantages of writing, is that we've got the luxury to go back and edit and reiterate and eliminate and expand if necessary. We do not have this luxury with speaking. When we're speaking, once it's out there for the rest of time, and there's no way you can take it back. You can do, but it's usually more difficult to do so. How we would apply this to IELTS is very interesting, because what we'd have to do is, this is the 10 minutes at the end of your writing where we're going to go back and we're going to look for mistakes in your writing, and we're going to just try and correct them, and hopefully you'll be able to identify them. Hopefully you've got training on how to do this, and you'll identify them. And the only way you're going to identify them is if you're getting feedback and you've had past tutors telling you where the mistakes are. Okay? And you can get your IELTS essays checked. You can go to IELTSwritingtask.net, or you can go to sentenceguide.com. I think there's a page there for getting your essays corrected. And it's just it's easiest and fastest way to improve. Now then, the next component is our choice of words, but we're not going to go into this just yet. We're approaching the end of this podcast. I don't want to carry on talking because there's going to be a lot of information overload. And if you want to get the most value out of this podcast, just write a summary, write a few points down, your biggest takeaway, and just try and implement some of the tips and the knowledge that you've heard in the next essay you write. And this way, you're going to improve much faster. Don't worry about implementing everything. Just implement the ones that you find the most interesting, perhaps, or the most valuable, and then listen to the podcast again and try and extract more value from there. Okay, part 2 is coming up in the next podcast. Have a fantastic week, and if you're struggling with any of these components that we've been talking about, the sentenceguide.com, the sentence guide there, will definitely help you organize your thoughts, thinking of ideas, structuring your essay, structuring your sentences, and you're going to get lots of feedback and motivation to really push your improvement. So go to sentenceguide.com and you can have a very good look at the cost there. And don't forget, you can email me if you've got any questions related to the course or related to IELTS in general. Okay, have a fantastic day and good luck with your IELTS plan. All the best.
Thanks for listening to IELTSPodcast.com.